Welcome back to Imperfect Parenting. Ben and Brittney, all welcome. You might just be joining us, jumping in right here. Great place to join.
I love that you always are including the people that
I just
maybe
think there's
never
gotta be
heard us
someone who's
before.
like, what is this
Always.
podcast? Oh my gosh. These are the
You
best
do it
people in the
every time.
world. I
You do
know.
it every time. But
If
you are.
you're that person that just joined, you're welcome. I'm glad you're here. So is Brittney. She's just saying it differently.
I just think if you know Ben, he's the includer.
Yeah.
Which means he's just always making sure everyone's taken care of.
I love you. Whoever you are. All right. I was laughing. I'm going to let you read the meme.
Okay.
But, however, not but, I was thinking about how some of our memes are connected to bedtime, which feels like such a huge parenting win. When the kids go to bed and they stay in bed, you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It's funny how we've our lives have switched in bedtime. It used to be begging them to stay in bed and, go to bed and go to sleep, and so we could be alone or go to bed and not have the baby wake up or whatever it is. The flip side of this now is we are trying to go to bed. Like we're the first ones to bed almost every single night, and empowering our kids to manage themselves. We still give a hey, you should probably go to bed 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And but what's funny to me is that we'll go to bed and we'll be sleeping, or definitely in the downhill slope of sleeping. And it's now they're going to go to bed and they come in our room still and then disrupt you to say goodnight for the 20th time, which I love. I mean, they're all teenagers or nearly teenagers. So I'm so grateful that they are climbing in my bed still. Adeline was in between us last night, and I was laughing like our nearly 14-year-old daughter is just chilling in a room. But it's just different. Now I'm going to bed. Where before we had to put them in bed, we could go to bed, and now they're still coming in our room.
The funny part about this, before you get to the meme, since we're on this conversation, let's just keep talking about it, is you have this ability, you will say good night, and within moments, seconds, it's not snoring, but you're sleep breathing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, how'd you do that?
It's because
That's without drugs.
The bed was made for sleeping.
I agree. And other things, but making and...
Making.
It's just amazing. It's a skill.
I like bedtime.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this, I will describe the photo in a second. The words say, my kid's begging to stay up for just one more show. And it is, I think, the cat from Puss in Boots is his name.
Yes.
And
is it Shrek?
Yeah.
Shrek 2?
Something like that. His big, huge kitty cat eyes, where they're mostly just, they look so sad and pathetic.
Just one more show.
And then it says on the bottom, the same kid the next morning. And then it is a picture of a cat that looks like it's fell in water
looks
or something
feral.
and is angry and growly and near hissing. Yeah, it's just one more show, big doting eyes, and then I'm going to kill you in the morning because you let me stay up for one more show and I didn't get the sleep I needed. I can relate.
Definitely.
I can totally relate. This felt like us at camp. But I didn't want to stay up for one more show. I wanted to go to bed. It was one more problem.
It's true.
It's fine, though. It's fine. It's totally fine. Anyway.
It's because you're so good at dealing with problems. I just kept bringing them to you.
That's it.
Here's another one.
That's it. All right. Well, let's... I was thinking about just kind of the conversation we had with Seth and just, where to go with this. But I was really... I write about this in my book, Imperfect Parenting, Connection Over Perfection, in case you forgot. But it's really important to us to be aware of your leading, the ownership that comes with leading your family and pressing into this and kind of owning and understanding how important it is as parents that we are actively participating in the growth that's required for us leading, and the boundaries, the conviction, the development that we need to do for ourselves to be equipped for this. I think this is why community is so important for me. Is, we both were really impacted by leaders in our life when we were in teenage years. So there's just this element of components that help make you successful in leading your family well.
Yep.
So that's my thoughts for today.
Yeah, I think it's such a big deal. I actually was thinking about fitness, actually. It's a funny thing that we've had ebbs and flows in our home. And, we want our kids to be healthy and work on this stuff. But I think
Lincoln's
about...
been working out every day.
He has, which is kind of funny.
It is.
He'll run in the garage and pick up the weights for... He's gone for 2 minutes. It's like 9 days in a row.
Got to start somewhere.
I love it, dude. I love it. But it really is the... to tell my children, hey, you need to work out, you need to eat healthy, you need to, and not do it myself, is rough. And I think we watch this in all parts of life, like, hey, we need to be respectful. We don't yell in this house while you're yelling. Like, okay, let's work on me so my words carry different weight. So when you're watching me, you're learning as well. Because that's really the thing that is going to lead our children. I think the words just back up the actions. So they're actually watching us be respectful. They're watching us work out. They're watching us be kind to strangers. Like just all the things we want them to grow in them. The actions have gone before us. So the words just reiterate this point.
We spoke at Upper Room Dallas not very long ago, and you talked about culture stones, which we'll talk a little bit more about that on another episode coming up. But I was just thinking about one of the core values that we've developed is a funny example is the kids call it your praying hands. And it doesn't feel like, that's jazz hands. I don't know that it was part of the core values that we were set out when we were married. That this is what's going to show up in our family. Except that we love God, we serve Him, and we believe that He sent His Son to perform miracles, and then He says, "Greater things you'll do." So we're just walking in it. We're just practicing it. We're just doing it every opportunity that is before us. That we're obedient. We're leaning into it. But what has happened as far as a core value that's developed is Ben. You've really led in this more than me, but he'll feel like he's supposed to pray for somebody or has a prophetic word or just wants to encourage or whatever. Or you want to tip them really big because this is how you feel like that's how we're being generous and blessing. And I think the kids get used to watching us figure out how do we interject on someone's routine or whatever they're doing. They're serving somebody, they're a waitress or a waiter or whatever it is. And we've just put that on display. So that's a core value that they have seen modeled consistently, especially with you, of, all right, I am going to be obedient to the Lord, even if it's wrong. I think that's the other part that I love is that you've been wrong plenty of times, and they've seen you be wrong and they've seen you be right. But the thing that is absolutely the same consistency is your willingness to keep going, like to do it again and again and again. Like just because you were wrong 3 times in a row didn't stop you from the 4th time and you were right. And that's what they've seen. And it's just kind of been folded into our core values. So the reason why I'm explaining all of this backstory is I remember Delaney got in a car accident and I was talking to her because I was out of town and Ben was handling it. It was late at night. You had the tow truck driver and I'm FaceTiming Delaney and I said, "What's Dad doing?" And she goes, "Oh, he's got his praying hands on." And I knew exactly what that meant because throughout the years, that's kind of the coined phrase that the kids have made is the praying hands. And then we were speaking somewhere and all the kids were with us in Texas and they're like, "What's Dad doing?" And Delaney and I look back and before we could turn back around, Alan goes, "Oh, it's praying hands." I'm like, that's exactly what's happening. So it's just funny how, these core values show up when you practice them enough to where your kids then see what they are.
Yeah.
And it's fun when then you get to see them be expressed in your kids. Yeah. And they do that. They participate with us in praying or different things where, Adeline has a pretty big boldness similar to yours, and that mine and Delaney's looks still a little bit different, but it's really fun, again, when you are doing a good job leading your family in something that you want to be replicated in them, and it is protected, and it's practice in failure and in success, that it shows up as this stake in the ground. Yep. So that's a fun one for me, is watching them coin the praying hands.
I love it. I love that stuff, obviously. I mean, I love when heaven meets earth through just a simple obedience. There's so many stories going through my head as you're talking, that I don't want to share them all right now. It's not why you're here, but one is, I remember with Delaney, she was probably 7 years old, and I took her to the church, and it was a Saturday morning, and they're going to do a little treasure hunt, they would call it. So we sat in this room, we prayed together, and they had the kids draw pictures or colors or something, just ask the Lord for a word. And I can't remember even what she drew, so long ago now, but she drew something on this piece of paper, and then we go to Walmart. And I think she wrote a letter, actually. And she was looking for a certain kind of shirt, certain color. And we're walking around, we just didn't find anyone, and it's probably time to go home. So we're about to leave. As we're walking out, we find this person. And they're wearing the shirt that she felt like the Lord showed her. And she's like, well, I think that's the person. Should we go do it? I think so. Let's do it, Daddy. Yeah. So we walk up there, and we just kind of share what we're doing and how the Lord highlighted this person. And she gives them the letter, and they quickly read it. And you just watch this person's face change. You're like, oh, it's just so good for my little girl to experience this moment where she got to partner with God. And the deeper thing here for me really is, I said this recently at Delaney's 18th birthday, is that I've always said, and I'm not sure where I got it from, it's probably just something in my heart or something my parents told me somehow, but I think the biggest thing I want my kids to have when they leave is that there's all kinds of core values we're talking about here and things that we can list. But I want my kids to know how to hear the voice of God for themselves. Because if they don't have that, then they're just kind of building off of yesterday's bread, so to say. So there's lots of core values that we have, and every family's different. So us even sharing here, it's not like you have to go pick up this one and make it happen for you. It's what's the thing that you burn for? What's the thing that brings you life? What's the thing that you're going to be doing in your life that you want to filter down in your kids? That's going to become a core value, and that becomes a stone. And one of the things that you actually did in Dallas at the upper room is when you jumped up and kind of helped me land the plane, you talked about there's even some stones that people have, and again, we'll talk more about this, there's stones people have in their life that maybe they shouldn't have. They picked up stones from their parents that maybe they want to exchange. Which is just a great thing to consider is, it hasn't been things that I've been prioritizing that I should shift from. So.
Hey, it's Brittney here. I'm normally on the Kylo Show, yes, but I wrote a book. I wrote a book for parents, but I talk a lot about moms. So if you're listening to this and you're a mom who's frustrated, who feels like you're failing, who feels hopeless in this game of parenting that we're in. So if that's you, mom, buy yourself this gift on Mother's Day. It's going to be worth it. So I hope that you feel blessed and encouraged by my new book, Imperfect Parenting. You can find it at imperfectparenting.co.
It's so much of strengthening your family in the Lord. It comes from modeling it. And so whether you had that modeled or not, I think the choice today is that you begin to lean in and model it. And that's the beauty of, one generation from the next is maybe you didn't get it. Maybe you didn't get what you wanted. Well, your opportunity is to put it in front of you and start changing it. And we've talked a lot with our kids, and I think Lincoln's right at this age where, you watch them ride on your coattails for a while as their children and their relationship with God. and then they start to shift away from it
Yep.
and develop their own. It's like they're going to the gym for the first time. Like, they're doing their 2-minute warm up outside in the garage with the weights, and that's great. And I think watching them and creating opportunities and helping them understand what it is that they're hearing or experiencing or reading, and so much of that comes out of your own practice of, am I doing that in my own life to be able to nurture as they grow? And I would hope that you'd say yes. I think so much we are in a very charismatic environment with our churches that our kids have grown up in. So, praying for people and even being encountered by the Spirit of God and, having an experience where you feel like you can't control your body. Those are all pretty common in our world. And a lot of times we get swept up in the excitement of that when that happens. And it's less about that moment. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've talked to them about. It's less, sure, camp or a conference is so much fun and it's so electric, and the energy and what's happening, the testimonies and the lights, the smoke, the singing. It's just so awesome. But what about the next day?
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about how was your heart impacted? What was the moment that changed? What do you feel like you got away from it? What are you going to do now?
Yeah.
And so helping them, even as they grow up, have these encounters with not looking for the next hit of Jesus, like we're drug addicts, but looking for how do we create this momentum and the change that's impacted our heart, and getting them in environments where they get to activate that, I think is really important. And just helping them steward what was impacted. Yep. And for little kids, in the early days, I remember Lincoln, when we first moved down here, he was 2 and we were church planning, and we were going to church all the time, helping all the things. And he said, "No more Jesus, Mommy. Mm-hmm. No more Jesus." Now, I've had parents that will schedule appointments with me because they think their child is running from God at 2 or 3 years old.
That 3-year-old's backslidden.
Yeah. And I would just say, no. Like, there's clearly a need going on. No more Jesus for Lincoln was simply, I'm tired of going to church services, which it was a lot. So
it's great feedback from a 2-year-old.
Exactly. That's great feedback. So, okay, what can I do to still practice developing these core values that we have of helping them develop their identity in Christ and experience the Lord's love, but not take him out of his environment and put him into Sunday school? Okay, well, Ben, you're going to church. I'm going to stay home with the kids, and we're going to read a Bible story and go to bed and pray and have just as a spiritual awakening as we might in Sunday school. But I'm not changing my routine of we're practicing inviting the presence of God, or we're practicing making space for something that is important to us. I'm just adjusting and not getting caught off guard by something that they say. I think that's the part that's hard with younger kids. Is a lot of parents, they get scared when their kids aren't interested in church, or they say things like that. I wouldn't look at it as something your child's running away from, or that you've got this rebellious spirit that needs to be knocked off. I think that it's them trying to communicate some feedback that they've got a need. So this is the great opportunity for parents to learn to adjust and grow and strategize. Oh, we need something different.
Yeah. And I think something that we have done a good job at, and have learned and done it wrong as well. Mm-hmm. But in the grand scope of our parenting journey, I think we've worked really hard because we have been in ministry our whole marriage. Some form of ministry.
Yep.
Now we work at Loving on Purpose.
It's still ministry.
There's all these things going on. I don't want to sacrifice our family at the altar of ministry and church.
Yeah.
I love church.
You do.
I always have. I just love the expression, the experience, the community. What happens when people who love the Lord get together. I mean, I've loved it since I was a kid, and I still do.
Yeah. If we're not at church, it's because I didn't want to go. That's a confession.
I don't work for church anymore, so it's a little bit different. But I love it. I always have and I always will. I just think it's such a beautiful thing the Lord's helped weave into this experience of being a Christian. But there's always this balance of I don't want to sacrifice our family on the altar of church, because church isn't my relationship with God. It's the thing that helps encourage me. It keeps me going. It's a place for me to go give and practice and give away and receive. It's awesome. But it's not my relationship with God. And when that becomes my relationship with God, when Sunday to Sunday is how I connect with God, then I need some maturity experience. I have to begin to mature some more. And that's the expression I want my kids to learn as well, is we're not going to church to consume. We're actually going to give, and in that giving, we get to receive, and to help people, and to love people, and to love the Lord in public expression, all those things. But I think family's got to come first. And if we're not practicing in our own space, in our own quiet time, like the day after camp, if we're not practicing that, then it becomes this dependency on meetings. We need the meeting to feel better or to feel closer. And again, this is coming from a guy who loves church, loves all the things. So,
and I really love that you kind of that language I've heard you use with our kids is, if you go to church to get something only, then you'll miss out on half of what it's about. And so your family, I mean, I came from a PK upbringing, so we served, but it looked different than what your family was doing in serving. And so you've kind of helped create this mentality of serving and leading mixed together. And it does, when our kids have adjusted and could see that I'm going to get something, yes, that's great, but I'm also going to give something. It has changed. And I think that shows up in our family on a lot of different core values as far as helping out in the house, how we treat each other, what we need from our relationships. I mean, that's kind of a pretty common theme that's woven between all the different aspects of core values, is that we are coming to receive something and we're coming to give something. Yeah. And that's how we, I think that's how we model a lot of things in our home.
Yeah. It actually comes from Jason Velton. He tells a story. I think he was 12 or 13 years old, and he went to his dad. And he said, "Dad, youth group is boring. I don't like it anymore." And his dad said something to the effect of, "That's because you're going for you. You're not going to serve anyone." And it was a little bit deeper than that, and probably more details I'm missing. But essentially, the crux of the story was, you are going only for you. You're just going to get something. So you need to begin to go to give something. And that's when this really went deep in my heart when I first heard that story. Like, that's a really good point to protect. And it's such an important piece. And really it's life. I mean, the disciples come to Jesus and say, "Who's the greatest?" Jesus, who's the greatest? Okay, just whisper in my ear. It's me, right?
Pick me,
says Peter. And Jesus says, well, the greatest is the one who serves. And it's kind of this key to greatness and leadership and promotion. I'm not serving to get something more, but I'm serving so that the people around me get great benefit. And
I think Becky Johnson just did a message on this whole thing at JC. And I mean, she kind of goes all into messing with our paradigm of what we know about, being royalty, and we are that, and we're called to be sons and daughters of the King. But Jesus' paradigm of getting into the kingdom is so different than the kings and queens in which we're used to. But it's a great message.
That's awesome.
I think she preached it somewhere in May or June. That's where I would start looking. But Becky's got great messages. You should listen. She's also a rock star mom that is in ministry, so she's crushing it.
Hashtag Becky and Derek Johnson.
Yeah, so we'll give him a plug. But all right, we should jump into a question though, because we haven't answered a question in a little while. So you ready?
Want me to read it?
Yeah.
All right. This person phrased it like this: I guess I should submit this question to Imperfect Parenting, but
here it is.
You found us. But what is the discipline for my daughter?
I would say who bit my other daughter.
I get it. Sorry, I got stuck here. Who bit my other daughter when she got mad? So she's biting. Anyone experience biting? We are going to start with a conversation and ask questions, but I don't know where to go from there. They're 7 years old. The 7-year-old bit the 5-year-old.
That's a big bite. That's a big bite.
Yep.
I was thinking that they were like 2 and 3, but 7 and 5.
Got some good teeth going on there.
You have a lot of your teeth at that point. Yeah, I would definitely start with some questions and some hefty consequences, because I don't know in what level this bite was, but you got some jaw power behind a 7-year-old. And, something happened with Lincoln the other day, and he got really mad and he hurt his sister. And it's kind of the same they're a little older, but I just said, so why is it okay for you to ever get violent because you're mad at somebody? And he just stared at me. I said, why is that okay? So if I'm ever mad at you, can I get violent? Is that how you see this being handled ever, anywhere?
Yep.
And the answer was, of course, no, and no, I can't. And I said, so why did you? And we're searching to find what is it that they need that they didn't get, that then they reacted really poorly and lashed out and trying to gain some kind of control most of the time. I think in here, there's probably permission for things to get pretty escalated. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming. I don't know. That's the hard part of a written question. But if my kids were biting at 7 and 5-year-olds, I probably would make the 7-year-old my shadow, because I wouldn't trust them to be near my 5-year-old. Yeah. Because biting or something like that could be pretty intensely painful, out of being mad, that would land you in a hefty consequence of, as soon as I can trust you to manage yourself, you can go hang out with your sister. But right now, I'm afraid that you're going to become hurtful because you can't handle your emotions, which means your life is pretty miserable because I do all the mom chores and you're missing out on any of your shows or playtime.
Yeah.
So and I would have that 7-year-old my shadow until they can come up with a plan of why I would be a smart parent for letting them go be alone with the 5-year-old, regardless of what the 5-year-old did. Mm-hmm. If the 5-year-old's throwing Tonka trucks across the room, then that's another conversation with them. Maybe it's a bummer. I'm so sorry you've lost your play privileges until you two can figure out how to play nice, because the level of disrespect and just being hurtful towards each other seems to be okay. So that's what I'd be chasing after, is there's high levels of disrespect to where we can violate one another. Those are my initial thoughts there, is making them your shadow, asking lots of really good questions, figuring out what the problem, what is it was they were needing, what's the mess, cleaning it up, what are you going to do? So that's a lot of questions all throughout there.
And, I think even working out how to translate the idea as well, that as the bigger sibling, it's your job to protect the little one, mm-hmm. and not actually abuse that strength. I think even in Lincoln's case, you're talking about, he does Taekwondo, so he's much more equipped to inflict pain because he has these skills that he's built, which means it requires even more self-control. Mm-hmm. And the desire to protect, especially when you're mad. Yeah. Because if the bigger of the two decides, which this is passed down, this mm-hmm. kind of thinking is often passed down through the generations, that I'm bigger, you're little, mm-hmm. I can control you. Yeah. And so if that's showing up in more places than just the biting, I think that's conversation too, is, hey, it's your job to protect him. And then it might be the thing you're talking about, As soon as I feel like you're able to protect your younger sibling, mm-hmm. I have a shadow. Yeah. Let's go. Follow me around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the big part, is jumping in there and kind of redirecting and recreating some new culture that you want to see shift in your home, is the willingness to be disrupted. Because discipling someone isn't necessarily an easy job.
No.
And creating a culture that you want to enjoy, it takes work, and it takes investment, it takes time. So I know a lot of parents out there are tired, but the other side of it, we live in a home that is, last night was hilarious. They were wild little people running around. Or I guess they're kind of big now. But we have our 18-year-old that got home from work, the nearly 14-year-old, the 11-year-old, and they're just laughing, running around, and they're putting worship music on, dancing around, singing, laughing, being goofy. And I think you said to me, this is the best noise in the world. And I'm like, I, who have not as much tolerance, think it is bordering on chaos, but I love this rather than fighting and hurting and crying.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, totally. I just mean that we've worked really hard that they love each other and they enjoy each other and they goof off together all the time and they just create this really beautiful relationship. I'm excited for when they're adults. They're all adults and what that's going to look like, because I don't know. I just don't know anybody that has it quite like this that I'm close with. So
that's awesome.
So fight for that, creating the culture that you want. I think that's probably the best place to just keep in sight.
And thanks for the question too. This is a common thing, biting.
Maybe not at that age, but
not at that age.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good clarification.
Yeah. Biting is.
But biting for little kids, they usually have to learn the hard way. Like, oh, we didn't do that.
If it makes you feel any better, I got kicked out of daycare because I bit somebody when I was little.
She stopped. Don't worry.
I did, but I
She
turned
hasn't
out
bit
okay.
me yet.
So it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
It will. All right. Till next time.